My husband took his mistress on a cruise, but never expected me in the cabin next door. Like the video and hope enjoy the story. Imagine waking up in the middle of the night with the weight of a truth you never wanted to face. But suddenly, it's impossible to ignore. The clock read 2:43 a.m. when Emily's phone buzzed on the nightstand, pulling her from a restless sleep. The house was quiet, save for the soft hum of the air conditioner and the distant sound of a car rolling down the street. She reached over, still groggy, and grabbed the device, expecting a random text or notification. But what flashed on the screen sent her heart racing, a bank alert confirming the purchase of 2 tickets for a luxury Caribbean cruise departing from Miami in a week. 2 tickets, not 1, not 3, but 2. The account holder was her husband, Michael, but the second name on the reservation wasn't hers. It was Ashley, the personal assistant, who worked with him at his event planning firm. Emily felt the air rush out of her lungs, as if someone had squeezed her chest. 18 years of marriage, countless nights waiting for Michael to come home from work, promises of a life together. All of it seemed to crumble before that cold, impersonal notification. She opened the banking app with trembling fingers, the screen's glow lighting her face in the dark. There it was, in detail, a 7-day cruise balcony cabin all-inclusive package, paid for with the joint credit card they used for big expenses. Michael hadn't mentioned a cruise, not over last week's dinner, when he'd been so sweet, complimenting the apple pie she'd baked. Not yesterday morning when he rushed out claiming an urgent meeting. The betrayal was there, spelled out in digital letters, and Emily couldn't pretend she didn't see it. She slid out of bed, the hardwood floor cold under her bare feet, and walked to the window. The full moon lit up the backyard, where the tire swing Michael had built for their son, Ethan, now 17, swayed gently in the breeze. Emily pressed the phone to her chest, trying to steady her breathing. She thought back to the beginning when she and Michael were just 2 young lovers, dreaming of a life together. She, a talented interior designer, had set aside her ambitions to support his career, managing the home and Ethan while Michael built his company. And now, this. A cruise with Ashley, the woman she'd welcomed into their home months ago, who'd laughed at her jokes and admired her throw pillows. The bitter taste of betrayal mixed with anger, but Emily held back tears. Something inside her, a strength she didn't know she still had, began to rise. She wouldn't scream, wouldn't call Michael in the middle of the night demanding answers. She wouldn't be the betrayed wife begging for attention. Instead, she sat at the kitchen island, opened her laptop, and started planning. First, she logged into the joint account and took screenshots of every transaction tied to the cruise. Then, she opened a private email account Michael didn't know about and sent the evidence to herself. It was the start of something bigger, something she didn't fully grasp yet but felt was necessary. By morning, when Michael came home with a flimsy excuse about a late night at the office, Emily greeted him with a calm smile. "You look exhausted," she said, pouring him a mug of coffee. He thanked her, relieved by the apparent normalcy, unaware that while he showered, Emily had already called a travel agency and booked a cabin on the same cruise, right next to his and Ashley's. Cabin 712, adjacent to 710 where they'd be. The game had begun and Emily was determined to play to win. Over the next few days, she lived a double life. Mornings, she made breakfast, kissed Michael goodbye, kept up the routine of mom and wife. At night, while he slept or pretended to work, she dug deeper, planned, gathered. Using monitoring software she'd installed on Michael's laptop months earlier, she uncovered 2 years' worth of emails between him and Ashley. Affectionate messages, cruise plans, promises of a new life. Worse, she found odd financial activity. Michael was siphoning money from the firm into an offshore account, small amounts that added up to a fortune. He was building a future without her, using the money they'd earned together. Emily wasn't just a betrayed wife, she was a betrayed business partner, a mother whose son could suffer the fallout of such disloyalty. She reached out to a trusted accountant, David, who'd worked with the firm from the start. She showed him the statements, the transfers, the discrepancies. David, his face grim, confirmed her fears. Some of these transactions weren't just unethical, they were illegal. "Emily, this is fraud," he said, adjusting his glasses. "If this gets to the authorities, Michael could face serious charges." She thanked him, asking for discretion, and scheduled a meeting with a lawyer, Ms. Karen, who specialized in divorce and financial crimes. "I'm just exploring options," she told the receptionist. But deep down, she knew she was building armor. The day before the cruise, Emily called her best friend, Rachel, and spilled everything. Rachel, always blunt, went quiet for a moment before saying, "This is crazy, Em, but it's brilliant. You sure about this?" Emily laughed, a sound laced with nerves and resolve. "Sure? No. But I know I deserve the truth, and I'm getting it my way." Rachel promised to help, offering to watch Ethan, who'd stay home during the cruise, supposedly cramming for college entrance exams. Emily thanked her, feeling less alone. That night, she stood before the mirror, studying herself. At 47, she had faint crow's feet around her eyes, chestnut hair with a few silver strands she'd chosen not to dye. When had she started feeling invisible? When had Michael stopped seeing her? But there in that moment she saw something new in her reflection, a woman who refused to be discarded. She picked her outfit carefully, a navy dress that hugged her figure, comfortable yet chic flats, a leather purse she'd bought on a trip with Michael years ago. She tucked a special item into the purse, a spy camera disguised as a keychain, suggested by Rachel, just in case. At dawn, Emily was ready. She took an Uber to the port of Miami, 3 hours before boarding. At the terminal, as she eyed the towering ship, a mix of adrenaline and calm washed over her. She wasn't just boarding a cruise, she was embarking on a mission. At check-in, the clerk grinned. "Caribbean getaway? Awesome." Emily returned the smile. "Yeah, I'm meeting someone special." The clerk had no idea how true those words were. The port of Miami buzzed with life that sunny morning, a chaotic symphony of voices, rolling suitcases, and seagulls circling the docks. The ship, Ocean Harmony, a 15-deck giant with a gleaming white hull, loomed over the scene, promising 7 days of luxury and adventure in the Caribbean. Emily, standing in the terminal with her leather purse slung over her shoulder, felt the gravity of the moment. This wasn't just the start of a trip, it was the beginning of a transformation. The sun warmed her skin, but her eyes, shielded by sunglasses, scanned the crowd with cool determination. She was here for a purpose, each step calculated, like a chess player moving toward checkmate. The bank notification from a week ago still echoed in her mind. 2 cruise tickets bought by Michael, her husband of 18 years, the second reserved for Ashley, the assistant she'd welcomed into her home with smiles and homemade lemonade. The betrayal was a raw wound, but Emily wouldn't let it fester. She'd booked cabin 712 next to 710, where Michael and Ashley would be, and now, with proof of Michael's financial fraud tucked in her purse, she was ready to turn the tables. Emily arrived early, as planned, and checked in. The clerk, a woman with a bright smile and a name tag reading Kayla, handed her a keycard. Cabin 712, Deck 7, one of the best. Balcony with an ocean view, perfect for chilling. First time on the Ocean Harmony. Emily mirrored the smile, keeping her cool. First time, yeah, I'm excited. Kayla couldn't know how much those words concealed. Keycard in hand, Emily strolled to a cafe in the terminal, ordering a latte to blend in with the other passengers while she watched. Couples snapped selfies with the ship in the background, kids darted around with balloons, and a group of friends clinked beer bottles. She sipped her latte, its sweetness clashing with the bitterness she felt thinking of Michael. How could he? How could he plan a romantic escape with Ashley, using their hard-earned money, while she managed the house, Ethan, everything? The anger burned low, but controlled. Emily was no longer the woman who waited quietly. She was the woman who acted. Then she saw them, emerging from the crowd like actors in a movie she'd rather skip. Michael, in a linen shirt and a fedora he never wore at home, pulled a suitcase with his usual confidence. Beside him, Ashley, in a white jumpsuit designed to turn heads, clutched a straw tote and laughed at something he said, her blonde hair catching the breeze. Emily's stomach knotted, but she breathed deeply, adjusting her sunglasses. They didn't see her. They were lost in their own bubble, a world where she didn't exist. Ashley's laugh, so like the one that had filled Emily's dining room months ago when she'd complimented her cornbread, now felt like a taunt. Emily finished her latte, left the cup on the table, and headed for boarding, blending into the crowd. On the ship, the main atrium was a sensory overload. A crystal chandelier cast golden flecks, marble stairs led to upper decks, and a band played Sweet Caroline with infectious energy. A waiter offered a glass of champagne, and Emily took it, more to keep her hands busy than to toast. In the elevator, rising to deck 7, she ran through her plan, set up the spy camera, prep the documents, wait for the right moment. Timing was everything, and Emily wouldn't slip. Cabin 712 was a haven of elegance, with a plush bed draped in white linens, a polished wood desk, and a balcony overlooking the sea, where 2 wicker chairs beckoned. But Emily wasn't here to relax. She opened her purse and pulled out the keychain with the spy camera, placing it on a shelf by the door. Lens aimed at the hallway. She tested it, confirming it recorded clearly. Then she took out the sealed envelope Ms. Karen, her lawyer, had prepared. Divorce papers, reports detailing Michael's financial misdeeds, and a resignation letter that would force him to relinquish his stake in the firm. Each document was a weapon, and Emily knew how to wield them. She sat on the bed's edge, breathing deeply, and thought of Ethan, her 17-year-old son, home studying for his SATs. He didn't know about his father's betrayal, but Emily had drafted a scheduled email, set to send in 48 hours unless she stopped it. It was a careful letter, explaining that she and Michael were parting ways, but she'd always be there for him. Similar emails were ready for the firm's partners and Michael's parents, who treated her like a daughter. It wasn't revenge, it was insurance. She needed the truth to surface if it came to that. The cabin's intercom buzzed, snapping her out of her thoughts. It was a crew member confirming her reservation for the gala dinner at 8 p.m. "Table for 1, Miss Emily?" he asked. "For now," she replied, her tone masking her strategy. After hanging up, she stepped onto the balcony, letting the salty breeze play with her hair. The ship was pulling away from the port, the horizon stretching out like an invitation to the unknown. For a moment, she imagined this trip in another life, maybe with Ethan, exploring the ship and laughing together. But reality yanked her back. She was here to close a chapter, not dream of what wasn't. At 7 p.m., Emily began getting ready. She chose the navy dress she'd bought for a company gala years ago, but never worn because Michael called it too bold. Today, she didn't care what he thought. The dress flattered her curves, reminding her of the woman she still was, despite her 47 years and the fine lines around her eyes. She pulled her hair into a low bun, letting a few strands fall loose, and applied a vibrant red lipstick Michael had always deemed too much. In the mirror, she saw a woman who was no longer invisible. She grabbed her purse with the envelope and camera keychain inside and left the cabin. In the hallway, she heard laughter from cabin system. "I noticed the rewrite was interrupted. I'll continue rewriting the story from where it left off, changing the names, setting it in the United States with American cultural elements, keeping the same number of characters, and avoiding the names Sarah, Claire, and Lily. I'll maintain the narrative flow without summarizing, using no headings or chapter titles, and fully rewrite the text as requested." 7:10. It was Michael, saying something about the sunset, followed by Ashley's voice, asking him to open another bottle of wine. Emily paused, her heart pounding, but squared her shoulders and headed for the elevator. The game was just beginning. The gala dining room was a vision of opulence, with tables draped in crisp white linens, centerpieces of lilies and candles, and floor-to-ceiling windows showcasing the endless sea. A jazz quartet played a smooth rendition of Summertime, and guests dressed in formal attire chatted in a lively hum. Emily gave her name to the maitre d', who led her to a small table near the entrance, perfectly positioned for observation. She ordered a glass of Chardonnay, more to occupy her hands than to drink, and waited. It didn't take long. Michael and Ashley entered, he in a navy blazer Emily recognized from their closet, she in a red dress that demanded attention. They laughed, oblivious to the world. Her arm looped through his. Emily felt heat rise in her throat but kept her composure, lifting her glass to partially shield her face as she watched. The maitre d' seated them a few tables away, and Emily noted the waiter serving them, a young man who seemed familiar with Michael, likely thanks to a generous tip. She knew she had to bide her time, waiting for them to let their guard down, feeling too secure. Dinner service began, with plates of lobster risotto and grilled steak arriving, Emily barely touched her food, her eyes flicking between Michael and Ashley while staying aware of the room. The quartet paused, and an MC invited couples to stand for a special toast. Michael and Ashley, chuckling, raised their glasses, and Emily saw her moment. She stood, grabbed her purse, and glided toward their table with the poise of someone in complete control. While they were distracted by the toast, she slipped the sealed envelope onto Michael's chair, his name written in bold letters. Then she returned to her table, sat, and waited, her pulse racing, but her mind sharp. When Michael and Ashley sat back down, he spotted the envelope instantly. Emily watched from the corner of her eye as confusion on his face turned to dread when he recognized her handwriting. He tore open the envelope, pulling out the documents, and his expression collapsed. Ashley, sensing the shift, leaned in to look, but Michael tried to shield the papers, muttering something inaudible. Too late. "Emily?" he said, his voice a near whisper, scanning the room until his eyes locked on hers. The dining room seemed to hush, despite the quartet resuming. Emily raised her Chardonnay, a serene smile on her lips, and gave a subtle toast in his direction. Michael stood, legs unsteady, and staggered to her table, Ashley trailing behind, her face a mask of unease. "What is this?" he asked, voice low but laced with suppressed fury. Emily set her glass down, folded her hands, and met his gaze head-on. "This, Michael, is the cost of your betrayal. Sit. We're talking." He wavered, face flushed, but the steel in Emily's stare forced him to comply. Ashley stood, wringing her hands, unsure what to do. Emily continued, her voice steady but sharp as a blade. "Did you think I wouldn't notice? The cruise, the offshore account, the $200,000 siphoned from the firm. Did you think I was just the wife who plans barbecues and doesn't check the books?" Michael opened his mouth, but she raised a hand, silencing him. "No, you listened today. These papers," she gestured to the envelope, "are the divorce, your resignation from the firm, and an agreement that gives me what's rightfully mine. Sign them, or by tomorrow the partners, the cops, and your family get every shred of evidence. And I have it all, Michael. Emails, bank statements, even the texts you sent her." Ashley let out a choked gasp, staring at Michael for an explanation. He was pale, sweat beading on his forehead. "Emily, please," he started, but she cut him off. "Sign. Now. There's a notary on board, already arranged. I won't say it again." She pulled the keychain camera from her purse and placed it on the table, its lens aimed at them. "This is recording. Choose wisely." Michael glanced at the keychain, then the documents, and finally gave in. With shaking hands, he took the pen she offered and began signing as Ashley, stunned, backed away, mumbling about needing air. Emily let her go. Her focus was Michael, and she'd just won the first round. The gala dining room of the Ocean Harmony felt frozen in time, as if the outside world had paused to witness the quiet showdown at Emily's table. The jazz quartet played a soft Moon River, the saxophone weaving through the chatter of oblivious passengers. Michael, across from her, gripped the pen so tightly his knuckles whitened, his eyes glued to the documents she'd laid out. The opened envelope revealed papers that were more than a divorce. They were proof he'd underestimated the woman he'd shared 18 years with. Ashley, after muttering about needing air, had vanished toward the exit, her red dress a fleeting flare of surrender. Emily, poised like she owned every detail, watched Michael with a calm that masked her inner storm. She knew he'd try to bargain, to charm his way out, as he did in every firm meeting, but this was her stage, and she wouldn't yield an inch. "Emily, this is overkill," Michael said, voice hushed, grasping for control. He leaned forward, eyes searching hers, as if he could rekindle some old spark of loyalty. "You don't have to do this. Let's talk when we're home, without this performance." He waved at the papers, dismissing them as a bad joke. Emily tilted her head, a faint smile curling her red lips. "Performance, Michael. The performance started when you booked this cruise with her, thinking I was clueless. When you funneled money from our firm, from our future, to fund your plans with another woman. It ends here now. Sign, or the next scene plays out in a courtroom." The word courtroom made Michael swallow hard, his face ashen under the dining room's warm lights. He glanced around, hoping for an interruption, but the other passengers were lost in their own worlds of laughter and clinking glasses, unaware of the storm brewing at Emily's table. She seized his silence to press on, her voice firm yet polished. "You thought I wouldn't catch the $200,000 disappearing bit by bit? The transfers to a Cayman account you thought was untraceable? David, our accountant, noticed. So did I. He showed me everything, Michael, and here's the kicker. Some of those transactions are criminal, fraud, money laundering. Want me to call Detective Harper right now? He's an old college buddy, and he's got copies of the reports." Michael's mouth opened, but no words came. It was the first time in years Emily had seen him speechless, stripped of the slick charm he used to dodge trouble. She slid the keychain camera across the table, its lens discreetly trained on him. "This is recording. Every word, every move, so watch what you say." The mention of recording hit like a punch. Michael stared at the keychain, then the documents, then Emily, his eyes wide with panic. You wouldn't," he mumbled, voice quivering, lacking conviction. Emily clasped her hands, her red lipstick catching the chandelier's glow. "Try me, Michael. Just try. But I'll give you one chance to walk away with a shred of dignity. Sign the papers. The divorce grants me the house, half the firm's legitimate assets, and compensation for what you did to my stake as a partner. The resignation boots you from the firm, and the agreement keeps me from handing this evidence to the police. It's more than you deserve, but I'm feeling generous." Michael flipped through the documents, hands trembling, searching for an escape that wasn't there. Each page was a blow. The divorce outlined asset division with legal precision, the resignation stripped him of his role at the firm, and the financial agreement was a tight leash, not a noose. He looked at Emily, hunting for a trace of the woman who used to relent, who'd accept his apologies with a weary sigh. That woman was gone. In her place was an Emily he'd never met, powerful, unrelenting in command. Before he could respond, a woman in her 50s, dressed in a sharp blazer and wire-rimmed glasses, approached. It was Ms. Ellen, the notary Emily had contacted before boarding, a cruise passenger who'd agreed to authenticate signatures for a small fee and a vow of confidentiality. "Good evening," Ms. Ellen said, her professional tone slicing through the tension. "I'm here to witness and notarize the documents as arranged." Michael looked at her, then Emily, and reality crashed over him like a wave. There was no way out. He was trapped, not by the ship, but by the web Emily had spun with patience and precision. "You thought of everything, didn't you?" he said, voice thick with resentment. Emily nodded, unflinching. "I learned from the best, Michael. You always said the key to a great event is planning every detail. I just took your advice." With a defeated exhale, Michael grabbed the pen and started signing, his hand hesitating on each page. Ms. Ellen watched, checking every signature, while Emily kept the camera keychain in place, capturing it all. When he finished, Ms. Ellen stamped the documents, signed as witness, and handed them to Emily, who tucked them into her purse. "Thank you, Ms. Ellen," Emily said, her smile blending relief and triumph. The notary nodded and returned to her table, leaving Michael and Emily alone again. He slumped back, face grey, as if all life had drained from him. "You've destroyed me," he muttered, almost to himself. Emily leaned forward, voice low but resolute. "No, Michael. You destroyed us long ago. I'm just writing the ending I deserve." She paused, letting the words sink in. "Enjoy the cruise. But watch your spending. The firm's accounts are frozen, and you know it." Emily stood, smoothing her navy dress, and gave him one last look. There was no anger in her eyes, only a resolve that seemed to light up the room. She turned and walked toward the exit, feeling curious glances from passengers who'd sensed the drama. In the hallway to the cabins, she found Ashley, leaning against a wall, eyes red, her red dress now crumpled. "Emily, I didn't know everything," Ashley said, voice breaking. "He told me you were separated, that the money was his. I swear." Emily stopped studying her. Part of her wanted to lash out, but a kinder part, one that still believed in second chances. "1. Ashley, you sat in my home, ate at my table, laughed with my husband. Don't ask for my pity. But if you want advice, get out of this while you can. You're worth more than being the other woman." Ashley dropped her gaze, tears hitting the floor, and nodded. "I'm leaving tomorrow, first port." I'm done with this." Emily didn't reply. She walked on, leaving Ashley to her choices. In cabin 712, Emily locked the door and stepped onto the balcony, where the dark sea mirrored the ship's lights. She opened her purse, checked the signed documents and the keychain's recording, ensuring everything was secure. Then she grabbed her phone and cancelled the scheduled emails to Ethan, the firm's partners, and Michael's parents. She didn't need them anymore. The victory was hers, won by her own hands. Sitting in a wicker chair, the salty breeze tousling her hair, Emily let herself breathe. It wasn't full relief, not yet. It was the start of something new, a seed planted in ground she'd tilled herself. She thought of Ethan, how she'd break the truth to him gently, shielding his heart, the son she loved more than anything. She thought of Emily's haven, the dream taking shape in her mind. A space to blend her interior design skills with her love for cooking, crafting rooms and dishes that told stories. Before bed, she pulled out a notebook from her purse and wrote, "You are enough, always have been." It was a vow to herself, a reminder that the woman who'd faced Michael tonight was the same one who'd build a radiant future. But the night held one more surprise. As she prepared for bed, there was a soft knock. Cautiously, she opened the door to find a crew member, a young woman with braided hair and a name tag reading Nicole. "Ms. Emily, sorry to bother you so late," Nicole said, holding an envelope. "A passenger asked me to deliver this. She said it's important." Curious, Emily took it and thanked her. Inside was a handwritten note in elegant script. "Emily, I saw what went down in the dining room. I don't know the whole story, but I know a strong woman when I see one. If you need a friend, I'll be on deck 10 tomorrow at 10 a.m. grabbing coffee. Diane." Tucked with the note was a small sunflower brooch, bright and cheerful. Emily smiled, warmth spreading in her chest. She didn't know Diane, but the gesture made her feel less alone. She stowed the note and brooch in her purse, vowing to meet her. Lying in bed, the ship's gentle sway lulling her, Emily drifted off with a thought. Life didn't end with betrayal. It began with the courage to choose yourself. Hey everyone, what a moment, right? Emily's proving she's not here to mess around, and this story's just getting started. If you're loving it, hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell so you don't miss what's next. The Caribbean sunrise was a masterpiece, painting the sky in hues of orange, pink, and blue as the ocean harmony glided toward Cozumel, its first stop. Emily woke to the distant cry of gulls and the briny scent of the sea seeping into cabin 712. For the first time in months, Michael's betrayal didn't weigh on her as she opened her eyes. Instead, there was a lightness, as if last night's triumph in the gala dining room had cracked open a window to a future she was just beginning to envision. The confrontation with Michael, the signed documents, the recording that sealed his defeat, it was a milestone, not a shackle. Emily rose, slipped on a light robe and stepped onto the balcony, where the horizon stretched endlessly, whispering possibilities. Holding a coffee mug, she let the warm breeze play with her chestnut hair, silver strands glinting in the dawn. The ship buzzed with passengers gearing up for the day, but Emily felt at peace, as if she'd earned the right to pause and just be. She knew her flight back to the US was set for tomorrow in Aruba, but as she watched waves lap against the ship's hull, doubt crept in. Returning so soon meant facing reality, telling Ethan the truth, fielding friends' curious looks, diving into divorce proceedings. She deserved another day, she decided. Deserved to breathe, to live, even if just for a moment. She grabbed her phone and called the cruise line, pushing her flight to the trip's final day in Barbados. "Why not?" she murmured, a shy smile breaking through. It was the first time in years she'd made a choice purely for herself, not Michael, Ethan, or others' expectations. She tucked away the notebook where she'd written last night, "You are enough, always have been," and decided today would be for exploring, not just the ship, but the woman she was rediscovering. Emily swapped her pajamas for a breezy white sundress that floated around her legs like a caress, and pinned her hair in a loose bun, clipping Diane's sunflower brooch to the dress, its vibrant hue echoing her newfound energy. Before leaving, she checked her phone. A text from Rachel, her best friend. "Yo, Queen, how's the revenge cruise? Spill the tea." Emily laughed and replied, "Mission accomplished, now just soaking up the sea. I'll dish when I'm back." There was also a message from Ethan, asking if she was okay. "I'm good, kiddo. Love you. Back soon with stories," she wrote, her heart warming. She pocketed the phone and headed to Deck 10, where Diane had promised to be at 10 a.m. for coffee. The deck was an open-air oasis, with wooden tables scattered under white canopies, a bar serving tropical smoothies, and a panoramic ocean view. Emily spotted Diane instantly, a woman in her early 50s with curly auburn hair and a tie-dye maxi dress that screamed free spirit. She sat with a coffee mug and a novel, chuckling at something she read. "Emily, you made it!" Diane called, jumping up for a warm hug as if they'd known each other forever. "Sit, grab a coffee, a juice, whatever. It's way too gorgeous to stay cooped up." Emily grinned, caught up in Diane's vibe, and ordered a mango smoothie. They started chatting, and Emily learned Diane was a retired English teacher from Austin, Texas, who'd taken the cruise solo to celebrate what she called her second act. "Spent 25 years married to a guy who thought I was just the wife who grades papers and makes chili," Diane said, laughing. "After the divorce, I decided to live for me, and here I am, sipping coffee with a badass who stared down her cheating husband. You're my hero, you know that?" Emily blushed, surprised Diane knew about the showdown. "How did you—" she started, but Diane cut in with a cackle. "Honey, on a ship like this, gossip spreads faster than wildfire. I saw you in the dining room last night, and that look in your eyes, girl, you weren't backing down. Tell me what happened." Emily hesitated, but Diane's openness disarmed her. She shared a condensed version: Michael's affair, the firm's fraud, the dining room face-off, the signed papers. Diane listened intently, eyes sparkling with admiration. When Emily finished, Diane clapped, drawing curious glances from nearby tables. "That's what I'm talking about. You didn't just win, you owned it. This calls for a toast." She flagged down a waiter and ordered 2 mimosas, despite it being only 10:30. "It's early, but life's too short, right? To your grit, Emily." They clinked glasses, and Emily felt tension from the past days melt away. The conversation flowed, with Diane sharing tales of her travels, her students, her love for poetry slams. Emily, still guarded, mentioned she was an interior designer, Ethan's mum, and dreaming of a project, maybe a space-blending design and cooking. Diane slammed the table, thrilled. "Yes, a spot that's all you, Emily. Like a studio where people come to create and leave with full hearts. Call it Emily's Haven, how's that?" Emily laughed, stunned by the coincidence, as she'd thought of the same name. "How'd you guess?" she asked, and Diane winked. Teacher's intuition, and a dash of soul. Their chat was cut short by a loudspeaker announcement inviting passengers to a salsa dance class on the main deck. Diane grabbed Emily's arm. "Let's go. You took down a cheating husband, now you're learning salsa." "No excuses." Emily tried to object, but Diane's enthusiasm was unstoppable. On the deck, a crowd gathered around a Cuban instructor named Carlos, who taught steps with an infectious grin. Emily, shy at first, gave in, giggling as she stumbled over Diane's feet, who danced like she was born for it. Other passengers joined, including a couple from Savannah, Mark and Julia, celebrating their 15th anniversary, and a young photographer from Miami named Javier, with a camera slung around his neck. Javier, with a warm accent, complimented Emily's sunflower brooch. "It's like you, no? Bright facing the sun." Emily flushed, unsure how to reply, but Diane gave a playful nudge. "Look at that, already winning hearts." The group spent the morning together, dancing, snapping photos and swapping stories. Emily was shocked at how at ease she felt, something rare in new groups. At noon, the ship docked in Cozumel, and Diane convinced Emily to join the group for lunch at an onboard restaurant with views of the island. The menu featured shrimp tacos, blackened mahi-mahi, and a Tex-Mex platter tailored to the tropical vibe. Emily chose the tacos, savoring each bite as if rediscovering food's joy. Over lunch, Javier asked about her design work. "Ever thought about doing stuff for hospitality, like sprucing up beach hotels or island eateries? This ship could use your touch. Too much glitz, not enough vibe." Emily laughed, playing along, suggesting soft blues and driftwood accents to tone down the ship's flash. The talk flowed, and she realized she was speaking with passion, something she hadn't done since designing homes before prioritizing family. Mark, Julia's husband, suggested she visit Savannah. "There's a historic district that'd love your style. and I can introduce you to some folks with bed and breakfasts." Emily thanked him, mentally filing the idea. For the first time in ages, she saw herself as a professional, not just Michael's wife or Ethan's mum. That afternoon, Diane proposed a new activity, a painting workshop on the upper deck, where passengers could create Caribbean-inspired art. Emily, who hadn't painted since college, wavered but joined in. Guided by a local artist, she painted a sunset in shades of orange, purple, and gold, each stroke infused with emotion. When she finished, Diane whistled. "Emily, you've got an artist's soul. Don't let anyone dim that light, okay?" The words struck deep, and Emily's eyes stung, but she smiled, keeping the canvas as a symbol of her new beginning. Back in her cabin, she got a call from Rachel. "Em, you alive? How's the cruise? Burned the place down yet?" her friend teased. Emily laughed, recounting the showdown and her choice to stay for the full trip. Rachel cheered. "That's it, live a little. Ethan's fine, studying like a maniac. Says he's going to ace his SATs for you." Emily grinned, promising a full recap when she returned. Before hanging up, Rachel added, "I'm so proud of you, Em. You're coming back stronger than ever." That night, the ship hosted a beach party on the main deck, with tiki torches, a reggae band, and a spread of tropical fruit and sliders. Emily joined Diane's group, wearing a long skirt and a light blouse, the sunflower brooch still pinned on. Javier invited her to dance, and, to her surprise, she said yes. As they moved to "Could You Be Loved?" he asked gently, "What brought you here, Emily? It's not just a vacation, is it?" She hesitated, but his sincerity opened her up. She shared about Michael, the betrayal, the confrontation, keeping it light on details. Javier listened quietly. When she finished, he said, "You're a hurricane that turned into a rainbow. Not everyone faces that and comes out dancing." Emily laughed, feeling seen in a way she hadn't in years. The night ended with the group toasting with piña coladas, Diane leading an impromptu speech, to friendships found at sea and women who turn pain into magic. Emily raised her glass, moved, knowing these strangers were becoming more. Before bed, Emily stood at the deck's railing, gazing at the starry sea. She hadn't seen Michael or Ashley all day, and a waiter mentioned they'd stayed in their cabin, likely embarrassed after the confrontation. It didn't matter anymore. Her focus was on the present, the connections she was forging, the future she was envisioning. She opened her notebook and wrote, "Emily's haven will be more than a place. It'll be a home for those who need a fresh start." She fell asleep, certain, for the first time in a long time, that she was on the right path. The ocean harmony sliced through the Caribbean's turquoise waters, and the second day dawned with a sun that lit up Aruba like a gem on the horizon. Emily woke with a vitality pulsing through her, a blend of relief from her victory over Michael and excitement for what lay ahead. The gala showdown 2 days prior had been a turning point, but now, stretching in the king-size bed of cabin 712, she felt the real rebirth was just starting. The scent of fresh coffee from the cabin's machine mingled with the sea's saltiness, and Emily stepped onto the balcony, where the sky blended into the ocean in a cascade of blues. She held her notebook, filled with plans for Emily's haven, a space-merging design, cooking and stories, and for the first time believed it wasn't just possible but destined. Diane's sunflower brooch, pinned to her dress, shone as a reminder she was blooming, even after the storm. Emily knew her flight home was set for that afternoon in Aruba, but as she sipped coffee and watched gulls soar, an inner voice urged her to pause. Going back now meant tough talks with Ethan, friends' questions, divorce logistics. She deserved more, she thought. Deserved to live, if only for a few extra days. She called the cruise line, rescheduling her flight to the final day in Barbados with a resolve that surprised her. "Why not?" she said aloud, chuckling. It was a small but radical choice for someone who'd spent 18 years putting others first. She stowed her notebook, slipped into an airy beige linen set that flattered her frame, and headed to the main deck, where the ship hummed with activity. Sunrise yoga, a breakfast buffet with warm biscuits, and lively announcements about Aruba excursions. But Emily had a plan. Reconnect with Diane and the group she'd met yesterday, people who'd turned her solitude into something warm in mere hours. On Deck 10, the open-air bar was packed, families snapping photos against the island's backdrop, couples toasting with smoothies. Emily spotted Diane at a table under a canopy, chatting animatedly with Javier, Mark, and Julia from Savannah. Beside them was a lively woman from New Orleans, Ms. Ruby, whom Emily met at the salsa class, telling a story with wild gestures that had the group in stitches. "Emily, my star!" Diane shouted, leaping up for a tight hug. "Right on time. We're planning an Aruba adventure. You're in, right?" "No is not an option." Emily laughed, swept up in Diane's energy, and agreed, feeling lighter than she had in years. "Fine, but only if you swear no salsa dancing on the beach," she teased, joining them. Ms. Ruby winked, grinning slyly. "Cher, in N'Orleans we dance anywhere, but I'll cut you some slack, 'cause you look like you're taking over the world." The group rented a jeep to explore Aruba, and Emily, who'd planned to just tag along, found herself diving into the experience. Palm Beach was a vision, its powdery sand like flour and water so blue it dazzled. Diane insisted on group photos, and Javier, camera ready, caught Emily laughing as Julia plopped a straw hat on her head. "You've got a glow, Emily," he said, showing her the shot on his camera's screen. "Like the sun picked you today." Emily blushed at a loss for words, but Diane elbowed her playfully. "Watch out, Javier's turning into a poet. Careful, Emily, this Miami guy's trouble." The group roared, and Emily felt a surge of gratitude for these people who, without knowing her full story, were helping her rediscover joy. They spent the day swimming, talking, and stopping at a local spot for grilled snapper and reggae music. Emily, usually reserved with strangers, shocked herself by leading a dance circle, egged on by Ms. Ruby, who hollered, "Show 'em how it's done, Cher." Back on the ship that afternoon, Diane suggested a Caribbean cooking class on the upper deck, where passengers learned local dishes with a chef. Emily, who'd loved cooking since helping her grandma make peach cobbler as a kid, jumped at it. The class was led by Tanya, a Barbadian chef with a smile that enveloped everyone. She taught them to make jerk fish with coconut sauce, and Emily's deft knife work and flair, adding a sprinkle of fresh parsley, wowed the group. "You're a natural, Emily," Tanya said, tasting her dish. "Ever thought of teaching? You turn food into a story." Tanya's words echoed Diane's about Emily's haven, and Emily felt confidence take root. During the class, she and Tanya talked about her love for cooking and her dream of a space-blending design and cuisine. Tanya, excited, suggested partnering with US chefs. Start small, maybe classes at home, then grow. People crave food with heart. Emily jotted the idea in her notebook, sensing each talk was mapping her future. That night, the ship threw an 80s-themed party, with neon lights, an open-air dance floor, and a playlist blasting Sweet Child O' Mine to conga. Diane showed up in a hot pink wig and glow bracelets, dragging Emily to dance. "No hiding in your cabin, girl. Tonight you shine." Emily, in a flowy blouse and patterned skirt, let loose, laughing as she tried to match Diane's wild moves. Javier joined, attempting a comical thriller routine that had everyone howling. Over pineapple mojitos, he pulled Emily aside. "You're like someone waking up, Emily. What's the real story behind this cruise?" She paused, but his gentle curiosity opened her up. She told him about Michael, the affair, the showdown, keeping it vague. Javier listened without interrupting. When she finished, he said, "You're a phoenix rising from ashes. Don't let anyone snuff that fire." His simple words hit hard, and Emily smiled, feeling truly seen. The group danced, toasted, and swapped tales late into the night. Mark and Julia shared stories of their Savannah Inn, inviting Emily to visit. Ms. Ruby, with a grandmotherly air, gave her a beaded bracelet, saying, "For protection, Cher. The sea brought you here, now it's carrying you forward." Emily accepted it with misty eyes, thanking them for turning a painful cruise into healing. At the deck's edge, she gazed at the dark sea flecked with the ship's lights. She hadn't seen Michael or Ashley since the confrontation, and a crew member said they'd disembarked in Aruba, likely dodging stares. It no longer mattered. Emily's focus was on the bonds she'd formed, the ideas sparking in her mind, the future she was crafting. She texted Rachel, "Staying till the end. This cruise is showing me who I am. Xoxo." Rachel fired back with heart and crown emojis. "Queen, so proud. Spill it all when you're home." In her cabin, Emily opened her notebook and added to Emily's haven, a space with oak tables, walls of art that tell stories, and a kitchen where people cook with love, Maybe a collab with Tanya, maybe classes in Savannah. She smiled, picturing Ethan painting walls, Rachel planning events, Diane reciting poems for guests. She fell asleep to the ship's sway, dreaming of a place alive with light, laughter, and the scent of fresh biscuits. The next morning, over breakfast, she rejoined the group and Diane unveiled a plan. A volunteer project in Barbados, the next stop, led by Tanya, teaching kids to make local desserts like coconut turnovers. Emily, who loved kids and cooking, signed up instantly. Using her skills to spark smiles felt like the next step in her journey. As she dressed, she fastened the sunflower brooch and Miss Ruby's bracelet, each gift a piece of her new story. The cruise, begun as a quest for justice, was now a voyage of rediscovery, and Emily was ready to embrace every second. The Ocean Harmony sailed back to Miami, carving through the Caribbean with a grace that seemed to carry its passengers' stories. It was the final day, and Emily woke with a fullness she hadn't felt in years. The rising sun painted the sky in gold and coral, and the sea's scent filled cabin 712, blending with the aroma of coffee she'd brewed. On the balcony, her notebook open on the wicker table, Emily reread her trip's notes. Ideas for a space-uniting design, cooking, and human connection. Plans to revive her interior design career, and above all, her mantra, "You are enough, always have been." Diane's sunflower brooch and Ms. Ruby's beaded bracelet hanging on her purse gleamed as emblems of her transformation. The cruise, launched as a mission against Michael's betrayal, had become a journey of rediscovery, and Emily was ready to bring this new self back to the States. She slipped into a floral sundress that swayed with the breeze and tied her hair in a loose bun, the brooch and bracelet on display. Before leaving, she checked her phone, replying to Rachel, "Last day at sea. Coming home with a new heart. Get the coffee ready, it's going to be a long chat." Rachel sent fireworks emojis. "Queen, can't wait for the full scoop. Ethan's ready with a big hug." Emily smiled, picturing her quiet 17-year-old waiting at the door. She texted Ethan, "Home tomorrow, kiddo, love you, got stories and a cool gift." She pocketed the phone and headed to the main deck, where the ship thrummed with the bittersweet energy of farewells. Passengers snapped final photos, exchanged numbers and made reunion plans, while the crew prepped the last big event, an open-air farewell dinner under the stars. Emily found Diane, Javier, Ms. Ruby, Mark, Julia, and Tanya at the Deck 10 bar, her makeshift family sipping smoothies and laughing at Ms. Ruby's tale of her New Orleans youth. "Emily, Cher, just in time," Ms. Ruby called, pulling her into a hug. "Was telling about the time I danced Zydeco in a storm and nearly drowned. You ever tried Zydeco?" Emily laughed, settling in. "Not yet, but with you around I bet I'll learn before we dock." Diane raised her smoothie glass. "To Emily, who turned a revenge cruise into a love-yourself journey. You're our inspiration." The group cheered, and Emily, touched, gave a shy smile. "You guys saved me," she said, voice catching. "I came to close a door, but you showed me I can write a whole new book." They reminisced about the cruise, the salsa class where Emily tripped over Diane's feet, the painting workshop that revealed her artistry, the Aruba day dancing to reggae, and Tanya's cooking class where she found her teaching spark. Javier, camera in hand, shared photos he'd taken of Emily, laughing on the beach, painting a sunset, dancing under neon lights. "You're different in each one," he said, accent soft. "Like the Emily from day one became someone new, someone who shines." Emily studied the photos, stunned by the confident, vibrant woman she saw. "Thanks, Javier," she said, touching his arm. "You caught who I'm becoming." Diane, ever bold, winked. "Javier's the heart photographer now. Watch out, Emily. This Miami guy's got you in his lens." The group laughed, and Emily for once didn't shy from the praise. She was starting to see herself as worthy of it. The day flew by, with the group joining a final Barbados outing, helping Tanya with a kids' volunteer project. Emily taught the children to make coconut turnovers, chuckling as they got flour everywhere and asked endless questions. A 9-year-old with pigtails hugged her, saying, "You cook like my nana, come back, okay?" Emily promised, feeling a bond with these kids who, like her, deserved big dreams. Back on the ship, Tanya pulled her aside. "You've got a gift, Emily. It's not just cooking, it's inspiring. Call me when you're home. I've got chef friends who'd love to work with you on your project." Emily thanked her, jotting Tanya's number in her notebook, now brimming with ideas, contacts, and dreams. Mark and Julia offered to connect her with Savannah Inn owners needing design flair. "Come to Savannah, Emily. It's your kind of place," Julia said warmly. Ms. Ruby, grandmotherly, gave Emily a silver charm. "For guidance, Chair. The sea led you here. Now it's taken you to your fate." That night, the farewell dinner was a spectacle on the main deck, with tables adorned with orchids, torches flickering, and a band playing American classics from Springsteen to Stevie Nicks. Emily wore a long teal linen dress, sea-like, and joined the group, feeling part of something bigger. During dinner, Diane stood for a spontaneous toast, champagne in hand. "Here's to this cruise, which made us family. And to Emily, who showed us strength comes from within. You're a beacon, friend." The group clapped and Emily, eyes misty, thanked them. "You gave me wings," she said, voice steady despite emotion. "And I'll fly high, for me and everyone who believes in me." Javier snapped a photo, capturing her glow, and Ms. Ruby shouted, "That's my girl. Show the world who Emily is." Before returning to her cabin, Emily lingered at the deck's railing, staring at the starlit sea. She hadn't seen Michael or Ashley since the showdown, and a crew member said they'd left in Aruba, likely to avoid gossip. It didn't matter. The past was a shadow she'd left behind. The future, a blank canvas ready for her brush. She wrote in her notebook, "The haven will be a place of new beginnings. For me, Ethan, anyone needing a home." She fell asleep to the ship's sway, dreaming of sage-green walls, tables filled with laughter, and the aroma of fresh cornbread. 6 months later, sunlight bathed a cozy storefront in Charlotte, North Carolina, where a wooden sign read, "Emily's Haven." It was just as she'd dreamed. Walls in sage and cream, hanging plants in ceramic pots, vibrant art telling stories, and a spacious kitchen where students learned heartwarming recipes. It was a design studio and cooking school, but above all, a sanctuary for those seeking a fresh start. At 48, Emily moved through it with a confidence that lit the space. She taught cooking classes thrice weekly, sharing dishes like shrimp and grits, buttermilk biscuits and pecan pie, each with a personal touch that kept students coming back. Other days, she designed for inns and eateries, many in Savannah, thanks to Mark and Julia's connections. Ethan, now in college for architecture, helped weekends, painting walls and planning events. He was proud of her glow, and they'd had an honest talk about Michael, which Emily handled gently to protect his heart. "You're my rock, Mom," he'd said, hugging her. Rachel, her loyal sidekick, was the unofficial manager, running workshops and drawing clients with her charm. The divorce, finalized with Ms. Karen's help, secured Emily the house, half the firm's clean assets, and compensation for her partnership stake. The firm, under new leadership, offered her a remote design consultant role, which she took to focus on her haven. Michael tried contacting her, asking to explain, but Emily was firm. "Live your life, Michael, I'm living mine." He'd moved to a small town, and word was Ashley left him after learning the truth. Emily took no joy in his fall, only relief at her freedom. The final surprise came on a sunny Sunday, during the Haven's first art show, featuring Javier's photos who'd flown from Miami. Diane, Ms. Ruby, Mark, Julia, and Tanya attended, making it a reunion celebration. The place was packed with students, friends, and local press, calling it a haven of creativity and warmth. At the toast, Emily climbed onto a chair, champagne in hand. "Thank you all for reminding me life is about new starts." And a special cheers to the cruise that changed everything. Sometimes storms lead you to your path. The crowd roared, and Ethan from the room's edge yelled, "That's my mom." Emily laughed, feeling whole. The true shock came at the event's end, when Tanya revealed they'd been invited to lead an international project, teaching Southern cooking in Caribbean communities via an NGO. "You in, Em?" Tanya asked, grinning. Emily didn't hesitate. "Count me in." The group cheered, and Javier, camera in hand, caught the moment, saying, "This one's for my gallery, the woman who changed the world with a sunflower." Emily hadn't forgiven Michael, but she carried no bitterness. She'd turned pain into purpose, betrayal into triumph, and, surrounded by smiling faces, knew this was just the start of a life she'd written herself. Hey everyone, what an epic ending, right? Emily showed us rebirth is always possible, and her haven proves a woman's strength can change it all. If you loved this story as much as I did, hit like, subscribe, and tap the bell for more. Thanks, and see you next video.